All right, guys, I just finished actually filming the CentaurFormFix, but I want to say this again because some people are sending videos to the wrong email address. So CentaurFormFix@gmail.com is the email address that I want you guys to send your footage to, okay? Cool, let's let the video start. What's up, team? Nsima the Centaur Inyang here. So we have CentaurFormFix number 3 as promised. I believe this will be probably posted on Monday or Tuesday morning. So we're going to dive right into it. I'm going to start with a client actually named Daniel Gallego. So now Daniel and I have actually recently switched from doing the conventional deadlift to the Sumo Deadlift. Reason being is because he tweaked his back one day or at the beginning of a training cycle while working using conventional deadlift. We had to do a small deload restoration cycle, and then we introduced the Sumo Deadlift to make sure that he was in a more upright position so that he wouldn't have that back issue. Now, since he's just beginning the Sumo Deadlift, I figured that this would be something that would help a lot of you guys out. Now, Daniel had really good conventional deadlift form. In the video you're about to see, you'll actually notice as he grabs the bar, he brings his hips down, takes slack out of the bar, drives his hips forward, he's perfect. Now, when he actually started doing the Sumo Deadlift, there were a lot of faults here. I'm gonna try and make a video, or I'm gonna have a video going of myself also doing what he's doing and then doing what we should do. The hip use in the Sumo Deadlift is very similar to the hip use in the conventional deadlift, and it's very common practice for lifters to say, oh, you know, when you're doing your conventional deadlift, you want to just rip that bar off the ground, jerk it off the ground, pull the bar off the ground. Whereas, no, you still want to have it to be a hip-driven movement. You want to stabilize with your back by breaking the bar and packing your lats. Then you want to bring your hips down and drive your hips forward. It's still going to be a hip-driven movement. Now, in his sumo, he's having really hard issues taking slack out of the bar. Now, it's probably because he's just started doing the Sumo Deadlift and it's a new movement for him. But what we want to fix is this. As you see in the video, he's actually going down. He's trying to get into a good position before he takes slack out. But as you bring your hips down, you got to be taking slack out of the bar as you're coming down. It should be harder and harder and harder to bring your hips close to the ground because of all the slack that you're taking out of the bar. Which is why for a majority of people, they don't need to start with such a low hip position because it's very hard to actually produce power when your hips are so close to the ground. You want to grab the bar, you want to slightly just, break the bar, and then you want to bring your hips backwards, down and back while you're taking slack out of the bar and then drive them through. Some people are in the party of just bring your hips, just bring your hips straight down, but you don't want to do that because you're not taking enough slack out of the bar. So that's what we want to fix on his Sumo Deadlift. We need to have for Daniel at least, we need to have a much smoother process of taking slack out of the bar. And then we're gonna work on other things since he just started the Sumo Deadlift. But the main thing we're working on here is taking slack out like you would on the conventional deadlift. Same exact thing. Keep the arms long, bring the hips back, drive the hips forward. Let's look at the next video. All right, so this next video is from Joel Patera. It's a Sumo Deadlift. It's 315 by 7. Let's go ahead and give this a watch real quick and see what we can see. So you do a good job keeping your arms long. You're doing the thing that a lot of people do where you bring your hips much lower and then your hips, your torso comes forward and then you start your pull. So again, I've said this many times, but this is an indication that either you're not holding position well enough or potentially you should just start where your hip position starts. So we're gonna pause the video where you should actually just start your deadlift or initiate your deadlift. And what you need to be doing, instead of setting up by getting down in the position, so getting into a low position, then starting your pull, set up by bringing your hips into the position and driving forward. I think that can be a more consistent setup for you because the thing that's gonna happen is that when the weights get heavier, right? And you do the same setup where you set up in a low position and then you start your pull and your hips come up. When the weights get heavier, your hips are gonna come up more than they typically would. So you're gonna lose a lot of tightness when you're working with like 1 rep loads. Whereas if you were just gonna bring your hips down into that position while taking slack out of the bar, you're gonna hold the same hip position every time you begin a Sumo Deadlift, and it's much easier to maintain over a long period of time. So change your setup. Instead of setting up like some people do where they set up low, take slack out of the bar as you're heading down, like I was mentioning with Daniel, and then drive your hips forward. You'll be in a good position. So this next video is from someone named Thanasis. Okay, so we're gonna be first looking at a 100, actually, we're only gonna be looking at a 150 kilogram deadlift. I believe it might be a single or a double. So let's take a look at how he executes this, and then we'll go from there. All right, so yeah, dude, you know what? I don't have any really complaints about your deadlift. Now, if you watch a lot of like, you know, pro deadlifters or, you know, guys that conventional deadlift really heavy loads and have that rounded thoracic spine, you're doing a very good job about getting into into that position, but you're maintaining that position. Because what a lot of lifters do when they try to execute a deadlift like this is they'll get into that position, but then as they start their pull, they'll slowly just go like this and this and this and this, and then they'll let themselves round. You're doing a very good job of maintaining that. You're doing a very good job of packing your lats. You're keeping your arms long, you're taking slack out of the bar, you're driving your hips forward, and your hip position is great. I would say, you know, obviously as you get deeper into your sets, you want to do more, or you want to try and make sure that you're not losing that tightness in your lats. But the rounded thoracic position is something that if you can do correctly, it's a very effective way to deadlift heavy weight. What I will say is this though, it is like that is a way, or you will be more prone to injury if you deadlift that way. And if you deadlift that way without thinking, and if you deadlift that way without being safe. In this video that you sent me, it looks good. I would just say, just make sure that when you're working with a 1 rep, a two rep loads, that you're very cognizant of what's going on with your back, and you're making sure that you're holding that rounded position. Okay, as long as you're holding that rounded position, that's fine. When I see videos of people that do a rounded position, but they don't have the capacity to hold and keep that position throughout their whole deadlift, then I know that that's a red flag. But the reason why it works for you is because you're holding it well and you're maintaining it well. Everything else is good in that video. Just keep doing what you're doing and just be cognizant of your lats and make sure that you're not letting this continue to round even more, okay? Next video is from Sam Allen. He sent me some videos of his front squat. Now, Sam, I noticed in the video that you sent me you have a really close front squat stance. That's not a problem, especially if you're trying to focus on your quads, because you're 31 days apparently out from your men's physique show. If you're trying to focus on a movement, like if you're benching for bodybuilding or squatting for bodybuilding, there's a different way you could do it to focus on your quads, and that's perfectly okay, especially since you're not trying to focus this in a powerlifting way. So I have no complaints about your front squat form. You're doing a great job of getting yourself screwed into the bar, so you're keeping your elbows high. You're also keeping your back position, so you're not rounding when you're front squatting. When you come out of the hole, it's very hip dominant. Like I said, you're not losing that torso position, so that's really good. There's really no complaints about the way you're front squatting. Now, if there was other application here, like if you were trying to apply it towards like your actual back squat or towards powerlifting, maybe you would take a slightly wider stance in terms of your front squat, but there's no reason you'd have to do that because, like you said, you're focusing on your quads and you're 31 days out from a show, so it looks good. Well, the next video is from, I'm not sure what his name is, but it's from AM Powerlifting. Now, these are his USAPL meet openers. He's 6 days out from this video. Yeah, let's look at his squat. Squat looks good. Didn't really look shallow, like you hit depth almost perfectly there. With your bench, I would totally suggest that, okay, so I just saw your bench press. What you did is this. So I would suggest that you keep a little bit tighter when that bar hits your chest. I could tell that by the way your arms kind of waved when that bar hit your chest, there was a loss of tightness when you finished off that bench press. So you came down. I hope you guys can see this because this is always a problem with these videos. You came down, this happened a little bit, and then it's like you tried to produce more force off of your chest. Whereas when you come down, you want to keep all that tightness here. This is a problem I used to have months ago. You want to keep that tightness here at the bottom and then press it off your chest. You don't want to lose that. So that's one of the issues that you probably can fix in your bench press. Hopefully your meet already passed, because I don't want you to think about this when you're heading onto the platform. And then your deadlift looks okay. Like you're peaked. It moved well. It's an opening weight. There's really no issue I could see here. You took slack out of the bar, you didn't jerk on the bar, your conventional deadlift looks great. The only thing I would help you, or I would say that you should probably work on, is your bench press. Make sure, like I said, keep tightness at the bottom when the bar touches your chest, and keep that tightness here. Don't relax under that load and then push it off of your chest, okay? So Peter Kim, you sent a video of your conventional deadlift. Now, Peter, one thing I'm gonna say, or the first thing is, you want to get rid of the inconsistent setup that you have when you first start your deadlift. So you do this 3 or 4 pump thing, and then you start your deadlift. I also noticed that you're deadlifting in Olympic lifting shoes, and if you are an Olympic lifter, Peter, that's not a problem. But if you're not an Olympic lifter, then there's really no reason for you to be doing that, because what's going to be happening is when you're deadlifting, the heels bring you upwards. It's going to be pushing you ahead of the bar. So you might have some reps, especially on a day you might be feeling tired. You might be starting with your shoulders ahead of the bar, which really isn't something that you want to do. You want to start either right over the bar or a tad behind. Now, you want your first rep to be as consistent as your second, third, fourth, and fifth, or whatever reps. So you need to, again, put your hands on the bar, bring your hips down, take slack out of the bar, and drive them forward. That's gonna be the most consistent, easy setup to maintain over a long period of time. Whereas when you do try to work with a load that's one rep, right? Because of the way you're setting up right now, you won't be able to do it successfully. So the biggest thing for you to work on, Peter, right now is making your first rep look as good as your second, third, and fourth rep, because those reps were better because you were already in a tight position. Another thing I would suggest to get out of a bad habit is to not let the bar bounce as you're deadlifting. A lot of people, when they do high rep deadlifts, they just let the bar bounce off the ground and they do that kind of thing. That's not a way to be able to learn how to deadlift consistently. That's not a way to be able to learn how to brace consistently. And it's just not a good habit to build, because you want to continue to learn how to re-brace correctly. So let the bar come to a rest, re-brace, brace your abdomen, lift. That's gonna help you out the most, okay? I think we have time for maybe one more video. We have a video from Emily's Ligmanovicius. A 100 kilogram bench PR at 17 years old. So, first off, good job on the PR. It wasn't as dirty as a majority of bench pressing that I see from people. So, one thing, okay, it was a PR. You did let it bounce off of your chest. So obviously that's not something that you'd be able to do on a consistent basis. When you do hit new PRs, you wanna have it be a PR that ideally, you know, it's sit, one, press, and you wanna be able to execute it that way. Either way, good job, it was strong. One thing I will say is that you seem to be someone that, you have a good problem, right? What you're doing is you're over tucking. So when people bench, you know, a lot of guys, the reason why they get hurt on the bench press is because they bench out here and they come down and then something happens with their shoulder and then they fuck up their shoulder. You're compensating by over tucking and you're coming down, right? And then you're pushing and then your elbows come out. So you come down and then you try and hold that position and then you end up coming out. So as much as you want to keep your elbows tucked, you don't want to keep them too tucked. So I would suggest that what might be happening is that you might be retracting your scapula too much. Okay, so this is something that's going to help a lot of you during your bench press. When people bench, and I'm going to use this example. When you retract your scapula, people have the tendency to retract as hard as they possibly can. But you think about the scapula as a muscle. I was talking to a client about this the other day. Imagine that you're flexing your bicep, okay? Now, imagine that you're flexing your bicep at 100%. Do you notice how much my arm's shaking? And I can't really hold that position for a long time. But if I flex my bicep at 90%, it's just as strong, it looks the same, I can hold this for minutes on end. Same thing with retracting your scapula. You want to retract your scapula at around 90%, something that you can hold position with, because that's going to allow you to have a consistent path. But if you retract it as hard as you can, when you're here, you're going to be shaking because your scapula is so fucking tight, and then you're trying to keep your elbows inside, and then there's all this inconsistency. So one thing I want you to do now is when you retract your scapula, when you retract and depress, do that at 90%, bring the bar out, and don't over tuck. You still want to keep tucked, but you don't want to over tuck things, okay? I think that's going to be the biggest thing that's going to help you out. Try that, let me know how it goes. And everyone, this is going to be the end of CentaurFormFix number 3, CentaurFormFix number 4, and probably number 5 are going to be coming this week just because there's so many emails in the inbox. I want to get these videos out to all of you. I hope this helps you. If you have any questions for me, let me know. If you have questions for Centaur or the next Centaur Q&A, you can ask some of those questions here because I'm going to look at the last video and this video for questions. Remember, email me at CentaurFormFix@gmail.com so I can, take a look at those videos for you. And that is all. So this is Nsima the Centaur Inyang from Break the Bar, Be an Anomaly, and I will talk to all of you very, very soon.